The next one we have is on page 17. Christy, of that presentation real quick. This is one that we would probably consider our real only fish management change to a harvest regulation strategy on one of our water bodies here in South Dakota. So we do have a couple slides just to show some of the data that we've collected over the years to maybe provide some history, and then also why we think this is a justified change. This is dealing with the regulation on Belle Fourche Reservoir. For some of those folks that aren't familiar with that, that's one of our large irrigation reservoirs in western South Dakota. We have 3 in western South Dakota that we would consider to be our large irrigation reservoirs. That would be Shade Hill, Belle Fourche, and Angostura. Those are both they're all 3 are primary walleye fisheries as well. And so because of this, I just want to provide some background data on this regulation recommendation. So currently what sits on that water body is what we consider a protected slot limit. What that means is that walleye, they cannot be harvested between 15 and 18 inches. They can still be 4 harvested a day, which is a statewide limit. However, the statewide limit is 4 daily, 1/20. At Belle Fourche, it's 4 daily, but either all 4 have to be under 15 inches, or there can be 4 harvested, but only one of those 4 can be over 18, and none of them can be between 15 and 18. This regulation was established in 2005. It's very unique. It's the only one we have in the state. In fact, when we developed our walleye regulation toolbox in 2009, we classified this regulation as an experimental regulation because it was the only one. The goal with this was that we were trying to improve growth of smaller fish, younger fish moving through the system, but we also wanted to give anglers the opportunity to catch fish between 15 and 18 inches and then provide an opportunity for a harvest of one fish over 18. I'll talk about some of the characteristics. Basically what happens at Belle Fourche, we don't stock that system. Walleye reproduce very well. It gets a lot of angling pressure. Anglers want to be able to have the chance to harvest the larger fish. And so the idea was that what we saw was we had slower growth on these fish, high harvest, and so there wasn't an opportunity to catch a larger walleye. So this idea on the protected slot was allow harvest of smaller fish, keep growth good, maybe high, allow catch of fish over 15 inches, but essentially let them grow to a size over 18 and then allow harvest of a fish over 18. So it fit the criteria of production of fish, high harvest, slow growth. And so this regulation at the time, we thought it was an appropriate one. So it went on in 2005 and it's been there ever since. In all honesty, we felt like it worked for a number of years. However, annual survey data began to show in 2020 that the system was starting to change. That walleye population was looking different than what we'd seen in the past. What that meant was we saw very few fish coming up in the system, younger fish. We saw a lot of fish in the slot. So what that meant were users were catching a lot of slot fish that they could not harvest. And so they'd go fishing, they'd catch a lot of 17-inch walleyes, and it was very hard for them to throw back 17-inch walleyes, but that's what we were seeing. So because of that, I want to show some data to show you again what we've been seeing and why we think this regulation change is justified. I'm going to show you 3 what we call length frequency histograms. What you're going to see on the x-axis is the length of fish in inches. Those bars are essentially numbers of fish. Y-axis is again the number of fish, but basically what you're looking at is any of those clusters. Think of that as a year class. The higher the bars go, or the more bars, that's more fish that you're seeing. The top example is 2014. The dashed lines that you can see and where those circles on the right are, that's that protected slot. So any fish within that is not able to be harvested by an angler. So that 2014 is a pretty good example of what we like to see. You see a lot of smaller fish coming through the system. Anglers call those the unders because those are fish that are moving through that are under 15 that they can catch and harvest 3 or maybe 4 of. That circle you can see on the right, within the dashed lines, that's our protected slot. There's a number of fish in that so that anglers are still able to catch 15 to 18-inch fish. They have to return those fish, but that opportunity to catch those larger walleyes is there. And then you see fish out past that 18-inch mark. So that would be the overs. So in this system here in 2014, we see a good number of unders, we see slot fish, and we see overs. So an angler has the opportunity to go out and catch their 4 fish if they want to target 3 unders and 1 over. Those fish are in the system. Now what we see is throughout the years, and we have this for every year, but I didn't want to throw it all up in here, but in 2020, we start to see this change. We see fish in the slot, but we see very few unders and we see very few overs. So the majority of the fish based on our surveys were in that protected slot. which means that anglers have a hard time going out and catching and harvesting walleyes. And as we all know, walleyes are very harvest oriented. So that only got worse. And in 2023, last year, we have a lot of fish in the slot, a few overs, but very few unders. So basically what's happening is we're having very much a lack of recruitment, fish coming up. So when anglers go there now, they have the chance basically to catch one fish or keep one fish. They can catch their over, and that's about it. What's happening is we've stockpiled these large adult walleye in this slot limit. This slot limit here, these fish can be anywhere from 3 to 9 years old. They can stay in there a long time. They actually suppress upcoming year classes. They're very cannibalistic. And so because of that, we'd like to make a change to allow anglers to be able to harvest more fish. Our regulation recommendation is a 2 daily 15-inch minimum. Really what the goal is to reduce that adult biomass that is out there. By doing that, we hope to improve survival of juvenile fish and increase recruitment. Also allow anglers to harvest more fish. Even, it sounds odd, but by going to a 2 daily limit, we feel like anglers will be able to harvest more fish than they can right now. Because really right now they're catching one over that they can keep, and that's it. So that's what we're hoping to do. Recommend a 2 fish daily, 15-inch minimum. The way that we'd evaluate it, we'll run an angler use and harvest survey next year, talk to the users. Additionally, we'll use our standard surveys that we conduct on an annual basis. And then as far as how long this regulation might last, it's hard to say. We'll let the data tell us. This last one went 20 years essentially. This one, again, we'll monitor on an annual basis and go from there. Going through this pretty quick, but again, I just wanted to cover some of that data on this regulation because it is a big change. It's very socially acceptable. So what have we done already? We visited with our local angling groups, Walleye Unlimited chapter in Rapid City, High Plains Anglers in Belle Fourche. Visited with our park staff, our law enforcement. We'll visit with them again. Also, we prepared a document with frequently asked questions that we'll distribute to you folks as well, but we'll distribute that to the public. Has a lot more information than what I just shared. But again, try to get the word out on why we're making this change. But again, we feel it's best for that population. I went through that really quickly. Be more than happy to answer any questions on it though.
Any questions for Jake? Yes, Commissioner Bartling.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Bartling. Jake, do we stock Belle Fourche with smaller walleye or whatever?
Through Chair. Commissioner Bartling, we have not. In 2010 we did, but our issue is it's not reproduction, it's recruitment. Those walleye are produced. The problem is more than likely they're being eaten. So by us stocking more, it doesn't do us any good as far as creating more walleye. What we do enhance is actually forage fish. We stock gizzard shad and juvenile, pre-spawn yellow perch to try and also feed those adult walleye, but we don't actually stock walleye themselves. They reproduce very well.
Yes, please.
Thank you for that, Jake. So say this proposal goes through and passes over a number of years. Do you see that there would be then a need to stock younger walleye, or do you think they will just do the natural reproduction on their own and not have to worry about that?
Through Chair. Commissioner Bartling, again, we'll let the data tell us. That's one of those that we evaluate every year and we go from there.
Thank you. Additional questions? Jake, you mentioned speaking with some of the local anglers in the area. How did they react to that, to the suggested change?
Madam Chair, we felt that there was a very positive feedback, especially once we shared the data with them, and really their stories pretty much aligned with our data. When they went out there and all they could catch were slot fish or maybe an over, it seemed to make sense to them as far as what our net catches look like as well.
Okay, very good. We do need to take action on this if we have no further questions or comments. Moved by Commissioner Cole, seconded by Commissioner Bartling. All those in favor with approving the proposal, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, it is approved. And again, there will be public comments open from now until September, with the public hearing taking place in September as well as finalization.